Okay, so what if an entire country just vanished from the internet? I know it sounds like something out of a movie, but on July 8th, 2022, this actually happened to Canada. And the craziest part, the cause was a mistake so tiny it's almost hard to believe. So let's dig into how one single command brought a whole nation to a digital standstill. That day, Friday, July 8th, it started just like any other day. Canadians woke up, they reached for their phones to check the news, scroll through social media, and nothing. Just silence. At first, you'd think, oh, it's probably just my router, right? Something that'll fix itself in a minute. But then minutes turned into an hour, and then a few more hours, and it became terrifyingly clear. This was something way, way bigger. I mean, what really happens when a country's entire digital lifeline gets cut? It's a question most of us, thankfully, never have to think about. But for one day, Canada got a very real, very scary answer. All that digital infrastructure we all just assume will always be there, it just, poof, vanished. And the fallout was immediate and honestly, pretty chaotic. The impact was just staggering. We're talking about emergency 911 calls on the Rogers network just not connecting. The entire national debit system, Interact, went down. Stores could only take cash. You couldn't book an Uber. Workplaces just ground to a halt. Even The Weeknd had to postpone a massive stadium concert. This wasn't just, a minor inconvenience. It was a total shutdown of modern life as we know it. 12 million. That's how many Canadians lost both their wireless and their home internet. Now, to put that into perspective, the telecom market in Canada is basically run by just 3 big companies. So this one outage knocked out a huge chunk of the entire country's population for pretty much a whole day. So what could possibly cause something this catastrophic? You'd think it had to be some sophisticated cyber attack, right? Or maybe a massive hardware explosion. Well, the truth is actually way more ordinary. And in a way, that makes it even scarier. It all started with a totally routine maintenance procedure. So Rogers was in the middle of this 7-phase upgrade to their core network. And the first 5 phases? They went off without a hitch. Everything was going so smoothly, in fact, that they actually downgraded the procedure from high risk to low risk. And wouldn't you know it, it was during that final, super simple cleanup phase that everything just fell apart. And boom, there it is, the finger slip, a single, incorrect command. Instead of just cleaning up some old configuration files, a technician accidentally deleted something called an access control list. Now think of that list as a critical filter, like a digital bouncer or a traffic cop whose only job is to protect the very heart of the network. To really get why deleting that one thing was so devastating, we need a super quick crash course on how the internet actually works. Don't worry, we're not going to get super technical here. The easiest way to think about the internet structure is to picture a city's road system. It basically all boils down to 3 main layers. First, you've got the access layer. That's like your personal driveway. It's just your home router connecting you to the street. Then you have the distribution layer. Think of these as the neighborhood streets, collecting all the traffic from all the different driveways and funneling it towards the bigger roads. And finally, the core layer. What's that? Well, that's the superhighway. It's the central brain of the whole operation, directing all that traffic to where it needs to go. Okay, so how does your data actually know which roads to take to get from, say, your phone to a server on the other side of the world? That's where something called the Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP for short, comes in. Just think of it as the internet's GPS. All the routers are constantly talking to each other, sharing directions, and basically building the most efficient real-time map for your data to follow. Now, this map isn't organized by every single individual address. That would be insane. Instead, it uses blocks of addresses, kind of like zip codes or postal codes. So a 32 in this lingo is just one single house, but a 16, that's like a whole city district with over 65,000 addresses in it. Grouping them like this is what allows the system to handle directions so efficiently. And here's the really crucial part. Those big core routers, our superhighways, they don't need to know the exact address of every single house. That would be way too much information. They just need to know how to get to the right city, district, the right postal code. So to keep them from getting totally overwhelmed, network operators use filters. These filters are designed to stop all that super local driveway information from flooding onto the main highway. And this brings us right back to that one little command. When that Rogers technician accidentally deleted that critical filter, well, they basically just blew open the floodgates that were protecting the entire core of the network. The chain reaction was just immediate and totally catastrophic. Without that filter in place, the core routers were suddenly slammed with millions and millions of hyper-specific local routes, all that driveway info they were never ever supposed to see. This massive data tsunami completely overwhelms their memory, their processing power, and they crashed hard. And when your core routers crash, the entire network goes down with them. Oh, but it gets even worse. You see, those core routers weren't just directing traffic inside the Rogers network, they were also responsible for announcing to the rest of the world that Rogers even existed. So when they crashed, they just stopped broadcasting their routes to the global internet. As far as the outside world was concerned, Rogers and a massive piece of Canada had literally just vanished. The whole outage lasted about 15 hours. But here's the part that'll really blow your mind. The actual fix? That only took about an hour. Almost all of that time, 14 hours, was spent just trying to figure out what the problem was. So why on earth did it take so long to find one deleted line of code? Well, the answer really shows a whole cascade of other problems. First off, critical infrastructure sites had no backup internet from anyone else. The staff trying to fix the problem couldn't even talk to each other because, and you can't make this up, their phones and internet all ran on the Rogers network. And to top it all off, because the whole thing was labeled low risk, the documentation was pretty bad, which made it almost impossible to trace back the mistake. Okay, so after a disaster of this scale, you can bet there had to be a massive response. Rogers didn't just have to fix the immediate problem, they had to completely rethink and rebuild their network to make sure something like this could never, ever happen again. And they are putting some serious money where their mouth is. Rogers has committed over $250 million to making their network tougher and separating out their systems. So this isn't just a quick patch, we're talking a complete overhaul. Probably the single biggest change is this. Before the outage, everything, both wireless for your phone and wireline for your home internet, ran through one single combined core network. That created a massive single point of failure. The new plan? Physically separate them into two different cores. That way, if one goes down, the other one can hopefully stay up and running. And beyond that, they're adding a whole bunch of other protections. The routers are now getting overload protection to stop them from crashing if another data flood happens. Any new changes will have automatic rollbacks, so if something goes wrong, the system can just snap back to how it was. And really importantly, critical systems will now have backups from other companies. Basically, they're building in all the safety nets that were missing before. You know, the Rogers outage was a massive wake-up call, and not just for Canada, but really for all of us. It showed just how a single, simple human error, one little finger slip, can spiral out of control and bring an entire modern nation to its knees. And it leaves us with a really important question to think about. Is the digital world we depend on for literally everything built on a foundation that's a lot more fragile than we think?